My name is Engineer Daniel Mackenzie. I'm the board chairman of the National Oil Infrastructure Company of Zimbabwe, popularly known as Noic. We're a logistics company primarily. We own the bulk of the infrastructure in Zimbabwe, which stores and moves petroleum products into the country. We own the pipeline from Mutare to Masasa, Harare. We also own big storages in Masasa and Mavuku, as well as in Bulawayo and Bedbridge. We've got extensive plans, highly developed plans, to make Harare the fuel hub within the region. That would entail us having contracts with the neighboring countries. At least that is the vision of our president, Comrade Aiddins. Because of our strategic location, we are right at the center, epicenter within the region, and we would actually cost effectively supply Zambia, the DR Congo, the northern part of the DR Congo, Malawi, Botswana, and the northern part of South Africa, the Limpopo province. So as the oil company, the National Oil Company of Zimbabwe, or Noic, we are mindful of our mandate, which we have been given by government, to ensure that Zimbabwe remains wet. The queues are things of the past. That is my clear mandate, which I was given by the president. And consistent supply of fuel. Current situation in the country is quite stable. We are holding big consignment of fuel in Harare, in Masasa. The fuel might not belong to government, but it belongs to traders. The traders bring in the fuel and we hold it in gold. So it's freely available. It's also available at service stations. Queues, like I've said, are now a thing of the past. Most of the service stations have got product. The pricing structure is good. Fuel, by its very nature, is price driven. Since it's price driven, it's also volume driven. The more volume you push, the better profit you make. So right now, we're in a very stabilizing the fuel situation in the country wasn't quite easy. Because initially, our pricing model wasn't conducive. We had to look at the pricing model. Because in the past, before I was appointed board chairman, we were selling below the cost price. And as soon as you sell below the cost price, you are inviting arbitrage. You are inviting black market, because there are always shortages. In other words, for the wholesaler or the guy who owns the service station to go and buy another product, another consignment, it was necessary for him to be, or her, to actually have to be subsidized by the Reserve Bank, because we're selling below the cost price. And if you look at basic economics, if you are selling below cost price, you will never thrive. So we actually turned that pricing model on its head. That's number one. Number two, the problem was inflation. The Zimbabwe dollar. There is need for Zimbabwe dollar and the US dollar to stabilize. Confidence. So on a week-to-week or day-to-day basis, you have got a situation where the black market rate is pushed up, leaving behind the official rate. That put a lot of pressure on the pricing of fuel. So we're insisting and we're policing service stations so that they sell at the official rate. Yet in some cases, and quite in many cases, should I say, they are actually buying their foreign currency on the black market so that they would be in a position to buy another consignment. That introduced a lot of untidiness within the procurement structure. And that untidiness ended up being borne by the traveling public, because most of the fuel was now going underground and surfacing a double or triple the price. So that's how we stabilize the situation, by looking at the pricing of fuel. Now the bulk of the fuel at the moment is being sold in US dollars, but at a reasonable price, a price which is actually set by Zera. So we wiped away the black market business. There's no fuel right now in the black market. We are also introducing, slowly though, service stations which actually sell in RTGS in a controlled manner. That way we will be in a position to cash in those who cannot readily access US dollars, but in such a way that the whole fuel industry remains consistent without too many ripples, because ripples then lead to shortages, and shortages lead to an outcry by the public or the motorists. So that's how we've managed to stabilize. As a country, we'll use between 4 to 6 million liters a day. The bulk of that being diesel, of course, because of the economic activities. In terms of the overall comparison with our sister countries, we're almost there. There are differences here and there, but we think the ideal situation would actually to have a pricing model which takes into account the peculiarities within the regional states, but also factor those in terms of weighted probabilities, so that a guy traveling from DR Congo through Zambia, Zimbabwe, going down to the coast, let's say Durban, we can actually access the fuel through these countries at a price which is almost at par. But that's no longer, it's not really the case. The differences are there, but they are not highly pronounced. In such, right now, it's almost, because remember, all the countries were bringing in fuel from outside the country, from overseas. So it's almost at par now. But on Zimbabwe is a little bit, is slightly higher, and some other country also, I think DR Congo, is higher than us. So those variations need to be ironed out, but the differences are still there. As soon as Zimbabwe or Harare becomes a fuel hub, we think we'll be in a position to now dictate so that those variations are almost. What we're doing in short is we have just completed a detailed study right now of the demand within the region. Unfortunately, I can't give you details because that study is still privileged for now. After doing that, we also looked at the possibility of actually laying a second pipeline all the way to Harare from Beira, a bigger one. Because storage were okay, we were rather constrained by the pipeline. So we think that if the approvals go through, we should possibly mid this year or the last quarter of this year start on the construction of the second pipeline from Beira to Harare. And then extended to that, we would have fuel tanks or fuel farms, like we say in the industry, at Lionsden and also in Wange. The aim is, going to 2030, we will actually lay a pipeline to Lusaka. We will also have another pipeline to Bulawayo from Harare, and maybe down to Francistown. Those are our plans, but we will take them one step at a time. But they are going to be realized so that as the economy grows and the fuel usage or demand rises, we are not caught offside. We should actually be right there servicing the nation from the fuel point. Vision 2030 is an approved milestone set by the new dispensation by our president to be an upper middle income economy. And everything in the economy is underpinned by fuel, in terms of services, in terms of production. We underpinned by fuel. So for us to seamlessly achieve Vision 2030, the availability of fuel is key. The price of fuel is key. So we should be in sync with the growth of our economy. The more activity, the more demand. The more is the demand. And we have been clearly mandated by the president that at every point as the economy is picking up, we should be in step with that. Availability of fuel should, in other words, fuel should be readily available. So we are actually integrated in the economy, and we are a major component in terms of the realization. As Noic, it's difficult for me to say we have got insurmountable challenges to meet our domestic demand. Maybe our major challenge, the way I see it, which I can actually flag out is the tariff. The tariff for moving fuel by pipeline from Beira to Harare. The pipeline from Beira to Mutare or Feruka is owned by a Mozambican company called CPMZ. Their tariff is a bit on the high side, and we have been negotiating with them on a government supplier or owner basis. And we have got some indication right now that we might get some breakthrough. But that has been slow in coming. If we reduce the tariff, then we also, the corollary is that the demand for fuel, particularly from the region, goes up in sync. So my major challenge, which I am looking at, which we are seized with, is the pipeline tariff. And there's no other. The management of Noic is very good. We do have, actually, we've got future plans. Our plans right now are centered on availability of energy, because fuel is also energy. We think that LPG gas, which is now heavily used domestically in this country, is highly priced. So government has got plans through Noic, through other agencies to get into that. We are building an LPG gas farm in Rua, so that government can now intervene and make sure that LPG gas is readily available in the country. Because most of it has been pushed by the private sector. Government's thinking is that we should also be there and regulate it in terms of availability, in terms of pricing. That's one. Number two, our petrol is blended. Right now, I think we're sitting at 20% or 10%, 20%, I think. Because we blended with ethanol, anhydrous petrol with ethanol. Now, the major producer of ethanol is green fuels. We, as Noic, we have got a company which we formed with ULETs, specifically for ethanol. But that company only produces almost 20% of the overall ethanol demand in the country. The bulk is produced by green fuels. Now, we would like to ramp up as Noic so that we can actually meaningfully compete on the ethanol front. We have identified pieces of land down the low veld so that we can grow sugar together with Hippo Valley. Specifically for ethanol, so that our percentage for green fuel, not green fuels in terms of the company, but green fuel in terms of the overall energy provision, is also meaningful, because that's where the world is going in terms of green fuels. So would like to meaningfully produce ethanol. And maybe the pricing structure of ethanol, since it's not imported, can also become competitive. Because the green fuels in terms of the company is the one which is dictating the price of ethanol, not government, not Noic.